Actually, I really like this map, because you have a lot of spots to protect your tank with some solid cover. Welcome to my map strategy for Ash River domination in realistic tank battles. Please also consider the information in the comment section of my video. In my opinion, this map is divided into two different battles, but I will show you how to handle it. I will post these charts on my Discord server. If you want to connect with some other players, talk about tips or something else, join my Discord. You find a link in my YouTube banner. Due to the circumstance that the capture point A is on the hill and you can't reach it from B or C to clear and capture it, it is kind of a second separate battle. So I actually never spawn there at the beginning of the match, because I want to be able to have an impact on at least 2 capture points. In the end, you only need 2 capture points to win the match. Of course you can capture A, drop down the hill and move to B. But everybody will see this and you can't move back to A easily when the enemy clears and captures it. But don't get me wrong, A is still important for the match. But there are only a few key positions I can recommend. And it doesn't matter if you play those positions in an up tier or down tier match. So I will just show you some key positions for this capture point, but no actual routes. When you spawn on the east side, key position number 1 is on the sniper hill, where you can have an eye on the whole area. But also the enemy will be able to shoot at you easily. So protect your tank by being hull down and only peek and boom when it's safe. The other key position number 1 is at a hull down spot where you can have an eye on the enemy sniper hill, but also on the route that leads to the capture point A. The next key position will be at the capture point itself. You have some cover there, but the problem is that the enemy can shoot at you from 2 sides. Have an eye on the positions I marked with the exclamation mark. And once you capture the point, it is difficult to move on or even back up when your team isn't pushing or giving you cover. You can watch out for enemies at B, but they also will be able to shoot at you. And when you are on the sniper hill, you actually can stay there, because the only way to move on will be to drop down to B or turn around and kind of start again at the spawn point. And from the west spawn it is the same. Also always keep in mind that the enemy can respawn fast and will be back within a second when you are on the hill on Ash River. Nevertheless, A is an important capture point because you can oversee B and other important spots. So in my opinion, fighting on the hill is not about capturing A, but more about preventing the enemy team from capturing it and sniping on your teammates at B. Now let's have a closer look at the other 2 capture points. When I start at the east spawn and have a full up tier match or close to it, I take one of my support routes to help my team. Route number 1 leads to B. My first key position is at the bridge. I protect my tank with the little hill to my left and watch for enemies that push at B or try to sneak around it. Have an eye on the position I marked with the exclamation mark. There might appear some fast enemies that try to get behind your front lines. When your team has captured B or it's later in the match and some enemies already were destroyed, move on to the next key position. But have an eye on the hill at A. When your team has lost A or nobody is there, be aware that an enemy might shoot at you while you are on your way to B to key position number 2. From here you have a lot of opportunities. But avoid being there on your own, because you play as support and the enemy might push this position. When another teammate is at B with you, make sure that you oversee different positions. You can snipe at A while an enemy tries to capture it. Prevent the enemy from pushing B or even shoot at enemies that try to climb up the river from C to B. In my opinion, this is also the last key position for this support route, but when the match is almost over, you can push the enemy. When I take route number 2, I move straight to the capture point C. Take a fast tank and use the rocks as solid cover to capture the point. Remember, the box wagons are only visual cover and enemies can shoot through them. Watch out for enemies at the positions I marked with the eye symbol and make sure that nobody is shooting at you while you enter the capture point. After you have captured C, you want to stay there and prevent the enemy from clearing it. Watch the positions I marked with the eye symbol and read the battle. When the enemy has taken B and your team falls back, the enemy also might appear behind you. When it is later in the match and your team is pushing at B, move on to the key position number 3. Here you serve the ridgeline before the spawn point of the enemy. Make sure nobody is on the hill to your left and stay hull down. Only peek above the ridgeline when you detect an enemy. The good thing about this position is that the enemy has to focus on your teammates behind you or to your left. You can try to destroy the barrel of stronger enemies or even shoot on their side armor when they want to move to C or B. When I have a full down tier match or close to it, I take my heavy tank and move directly to B. But I avoid the river and take the bridge because the enemy has a clear line of fire when I move through the river, and when the enemy also pushes B, I might get stuck on the little path that leads up to B. So I want to get more distance between me and the enemy and minimize the angle where the enemy can shoot at me. Therefore, I use the bridge to get to B. Protect your tank behind some solid cover and capture the point. Have an eye on the positions I marked with the eye symbol. At key position number 1, nobody should be able to shoot at you from A. After you have captured B, you want to move on. Remember, you set the pace of the match when you have a full down tier match. But you want to check the minimap prior and see if it's safe to move on. Because when the enemy has captured A and your team lost the hill, the enemy will be able to shoot at you. When it is safe, move on, but just a little bit. The second key position is just a bit closer to the next bridge. You want to defend the capture point till it's late in the match because the enemy has several ways to sneak up on you at B. While you are fighting the positions I marked with the eye symbol, you want to keep in mind that the enemy can use the little path from his side to sneak up to B and shoot at you from behind. Listen for engine sounds, or maybe your support teammate covers this position. When the enemy has lost almost all of his tickets, move on to key position number 3. Make sure that no enemy can shoot on your side while you cross the bridge and move to a hull down position or behind a rock. It is already late in the match and most of the enemy players will be gone, so you can push closer to their spawn. When we now have a look at all the key positions, we see a proper front line for each phase of the match. For the west spawn, I take my support tank and drive right to the first key position. Again, there are 2 routes and I start with the one that leads to B. You don't want to rush to the bridge immediately. Make a stop at that rocks and have an eye on A. Here you can destroy enemies that want to capture A right at the start. They want to use the cover to protect themselves from your teammates on the hill, but as I said, you can get shot at A from several positions. Also have an eye on the spot in front of you, maybe an enemy wants to push early. When your teammates push at B and capture it, move on to the next key position. On your way there, you can have a quick look at C and see if you can destroy some enemies that want to move onward. From key position number 2, that also is the last key position, you have a lot of opportunities to shoot at the enemy. Make sure to use solid cover to protect your tank. When you play it right, the enemy will have a really hard time to clear B and capture it. Have an eye on the capture point A, on the bridge where the enemy tries to get to B, on the path that leads up to B from the enemy side, on their way from the spawn to B, and also on the ridgeline over C on the enemy side. So this position is massive but only safe when there is another teammate at B that has some armor. The second support route leads straight to the capture point C. Make sure to pick a fast tank and take the long way around to get to C. Avoid to use the way over the ridgeline at C, because the enemy might already camp on the other side, ready to shoot at you. Again, use the solid cover at C to protect your tank and capture the point. From this side, I never stay at the capture point C when I captured it. Too often the enemy was able to sneak up on me and destroy my tank. I think it is more difficult from this side to stay at C, but also better to hide your tank after the capture point. Those who saw my video on how to capture the point know that I try to defend the point from a position that is beyond the capture point and closer to the enemy spawn. So after I captured C and everything is clear, I move on to key position number 2. When you have some teammates behind you, this is even more safe. Again, serve the ridgeline and shoot enemies that try to push to C, or shoot a barrel of enemies that camp on the ridgeline. In a full down tier match, I take my heavy tank and drive to B. Avoid the bridge and use the little path that leads up to B. Of course, the enemy might also be on its way to the capture points and you want to have a look at A or at the other side of the bridge while you move to B. When you are on your way to the path to B, don't enter B immediately, because from this side you have to focus on 2 directions and you can't minimize the angle from which the enemy will be able to shoot at you. The enemy can appear from the bridge to your right or from the little path in front of you. So when your teammates that play as support are on their spots, you should be good to go. Capture the point. Key position number 2 is again the last key position for this route. Stay at B and defend it. Just relocate your tank to see if the enemy tries to push B from the little path or the bridge. When you have some teammates around you, the enemy will have a really hard time to clear B. Let's have a look at all the key positions and the proper front line for this side of the map. So as you see, there aren't many key positions for each side, and when your team plays this map right, you can give the enemy a tough match. I hope you like my tips for the map Ash River. Like, subscribe and leave a comment if you want to. Hope to see you in game soon.